Welcome to the Emptive Podcast, where we chat about cloud-based solutions that make selling your e-commerce products easier, more profitable, and effective. Most people know the word e-commerce, but what about the other commerce types, like AR and VR commerce? But more importantly, how can they be used to connect with customers? We'll dig into that topic and more in this episode of the Preemptive Podcast.
There's, I think, about 5 we're going to go over today, right, John? Social commerce, VR commerce. Let's see if I can get them all right. AI conversational commerce, and AR commerce, and live streaming. Right?
Yeah.
And so take it away, John. Tell me a little bit about live streaming, because that one, I mean, I hear it on the news all the time, but I
Yeah. And so I think we're just going to touch on the topics in this one, because we kind of talked about doing a deep dive into each one of them.
Each one could be an episode.
So live shopping, now it's more of the live streaming is the vibe, because it's just the way you're getting it.
Isn't it like QVC though? I mean,
the history, right? And it goes back even before that. But you'd think, during the Timex commercials, or a lot of those were live on the spot. That same vibe.
Well, that's true, yeah.
But really, it kind of got started in the late 70s, and HSN, Home Shopping Network, and QVC. But the interesting one is a story about this guy named Bud Paxton in 1977. He had kind of owned a series of different little media networks and radio stations and little TV networks, and he had a couple failures, but he had this one radio station down in Florida, and one of his advertisers couldn't pay for on-air anymore, any on-air space. But I guess they needed the money. Nobody knew what to do. So the owner, this guy, Paxton, he said, why don't we sell all of your product that you're trying to advertise, which is a can opener, live on air by one of the talk show radio hosts.
Yeah.
So
that's pretty funny.
That's how it happened. And this guy named Bob Sarcosta, something like that, he sold them on air on his talk radio show. They sold them all out within an hour, all 118 of them. And then boom, it was born.
It was born, huh? Is that how QVC got born, or was that?
So then quickly after that.
Okay, that's sort of
that's kind of how it started. Then
we have a great idea. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, then they formed HSN. Okay. That kind of happened over some time too, and mid '80s is when QVC kind of came around. And then in the early '90s, '93, there was a group of a band of computer geeks that were at Xerox and Apple. And they had this idea to stream online their concert. So that's considered the first streaming online.
Oh,
I'm sure there's fights.
Rock concert? Is that what you mean, a band?
Okay, it's defined concert. I don't know the scale of caliber of this. It's
a bunch of geeks playing in a band. I got it. Okay, that's cool.
And I'm sure that they fight over who
knew all this history. Okay,
who was first.
Right. That's pretty funny though.
So let's get to the actual live.
Yeah, now we're in 2021, and I see on China and TikTok, and it's exploding, and 400 million viewers, and
So
I just see these numbers, but I don't know what they're really doing.
So in recent years, with influencers kind of picking up, stores are selling online, brands are selling online, and it's kind of snowballed, and I think COVID is the real piece of that. And that's kind of what's accelerated video and online selling even more. It's not having that ability to connect with your customers at a physical location has really, they've taken the time now to do it. And also it's the investing of the money too. Since they're not using traditional means during COVID, I think now they had that extra money. So it's and we need it. We have to figure out, we have to do something. So that happened. And now it's sort of
it's a perfect storm, right? You have everybody at home sitting on their phones scrolling, and now you have people who can't really sell saying, well, how am I going to sell this stuff? Let me go live, because live became live was popular a couple of years ago, and now they're just saying, well, why don't I just start hawking my stuff to my public, right? The people who are on their subscription list. Is
Yeah,
that
and
basically
the idea of advertising one to many is
right?
not it isn't new, right? Like
No,
that's what we do. The What's interesting now is there's not just one to many, and this was I'm sure the case years ago as well, one to one, which is an interesting way. I never really thought of live streaming or like online sales or demos, or that's one to one, and that within itself is a live stream. So it's interesting how a lot of these platforms are starting to like make that available to I think like a high end, let's think like a high end that sells high end like products or accessories. You might have like a one-on-one consultation with like a salesperson because you're not going into the store.
really with live stream?
Yeah, and it's
Okay,
one-on-one, and it's the same sort of vibe where they're like kind
oh,
of showing you
okay,
the product. You can talk to them, they can see you.
nice.
Yeah. um and there's this new word. Let me see if I can try to say it. Let's see. Fig, fig, Phygital.
No clue, John. I can't.
Figital.
Phygital. It's not digital, but it's phygital.
Physical. Digital.
Physical, digital.
Figital.
Okay.
And it's this idea of mashing those two
I feel really old.
together.
Okay, I get it. I get it now. I get it. I didn't know they were doing live stream one to one, John. So that's even
Yeah, but
interesting.
this is mixing it where
Right.
it's not even the one to one, it's the many to one. It's the one to many, and it's also in person. So there are these booths popping up where you'll see like they will be live streaming, and also like people will be shopping in the store. And so it's
Mm,
like shopping. And now I will say QVC has a little bit of that in their live studio tours. I mean, because we're near Westchester, Pennsylvania, which is where they're headquartered.
right.
So they
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
like tours and
I
stuff
have
like
been there.
that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they kind of have that selling like that you can see them
Yep.
and buy, like, so it's kind of that vibe.
They have their own groupies. I know. Yeah. Yep.
But with this, brands are like at their stores, or I think a good example would be like a niche company, like maybe like Allbirds. I don't know if they do this,
Right.
but they would live stream and sell from their unique store location because they only have a select few all over the country, and
Gotcha.
they stream from there. So
So who's using it would be brands, right? It'd be
brands.
mostly right, and especially I don't want to say high end brands, but popular brands, brands with a following, right, to some degree, right? They have to be at least
I guess you
established.
would think that, but like
You can't be like a new
it
startup.
is though. That's happening too. Like there's so
Oh wow,
many people who
really?
are
Oh,
like, that's that whole like what is it called? LuLaRoe. Did you hear the documentary LuLaRoe?
no,
Crazy about the women's
no.
leggings, and
Oh
that
yes, I
a
do know
lot
that.
of
Okay,
that
I
got
didn't
started
know.
with
Yeah, yeah,
live streaming
yeah.
on Facebook. Not just
Oh,
Facebook, but like that was kind of the main staple of it. And so no, I mean people are just getting on, they're selling, and they're
yeah. I guess that's true. So that what is the technology they're using? It's just basically whatever the social
yeah,
media
they're
gives you as your access and a couple cameras. Is that
I mean, there's tons of different platforms. Like there are ones
there's
that
no
are
editing,
very
right? It's at live.
there are ones that are very specific to streaming, and then there are ones that are like built into other platforms. Facebook's
Oh,
like
okay.
one of the most popular,
That's what I meant. Right. Facebook is built in,
and
right?
Instagram just released it. They're doing live shopping as well.
And the TikTok does it.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't.
They all kind of do it, and it's really though it depends on like what
All
do you
right.
like if you can go live in theory you can sell
Right.
live. Whether like the platform is like set up for that is a different story. But most social platforms you can go live with them. So
Now there must be some restrictions on what products. I mean, tobacco and
oh,
certain
right,
things,
right.
right? You can't
Well,
do, but
policing
most
that, I'm
products.
sure they're trying to use some like artificial intelligence to police some of that. But
Yeah,
and some products
if
like
you
you can't even list on Facebook Marketplace too.
That's what I meant,
Yeah,
right? There's still regulations, but I would think that live streaming might be, you might start out hawking one thing, and then here's some vape,
yeah.
and sneak it in, and it's live, and they can't cut you off. So I was just wondering
I
how
bet you
they
they're getting
might
good.
police.
They will soon. Um,
Well, that goes to the next topic, right? Is social media. Do you have any more on live
well,
streaming,
before
or
we
you
go
want to go?
on, listen to this a couple stats. $60 billion in
Jeez,
is attributed to live streaming or live selling in 2019. And
19.
yeah, and so it was
Wow.
before, I guess, like the heart of the pandemic, right? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah, it was right at the
they were
beginning. Yeah,
talking about it doubling in 2020, which,
makes sense
yeah,
because that's when everybody was stuck
which I
inside.
should
Yeah.
have. I don't know why I looked up 2019 stats. I must be a year behind in my head. I'm
I
not
think
really
we
sure
all are.
why.
We had the COVID fog.
Yeah,
Yeah, I know.
I don't know why. Oh, I thought to myself,
Yeah.
2020, we're not out of it yet. We're almost. That's why the stats, but it's not. I'm a year off.
Well, I mean, I've been so knee deep in e-commerce and other things and VDP. I never really took a look at it. And for my age group, we don't use social media as much. So I'd have to say I'm surprised by a lot of what you're saying. I'm sure a lot of our listeners might not be, but because they probably are using the live streaming and think, oh, well, this is old news. But I think so. So how's the future of this platform? Right? Should I jump right in? Is this something I should be looking
I
at
think
for
it's like
next
you should
year?
already be in it. I mean, that's like this is like I feel like a lot of people who are benefiting from
Right.
it, just from our customers. Like I'm thinking about the ones off, like that stick out to me are a lot of the ones that do like the live streaming or live selling.
But now I have a question for you because this brings up in my mind the Amazon ish and other like where the fees and
Mm-hmm.
are you checking out on their site? Do you get their email or do they capture? Are they holding data
Yeah,
and
just
with fees, or are you able to?
speaking of Amazon, they also
Mhm.
have a streaming platform,
Oh, do they really?
and I'm
Of course,
telling you,
of course they do. Of course they do. What do I say?
it's going to be dynamite one day. Like it's going to be like world domination. They know what they're doing. They've been test marketing it so slick for
Yeah.
years, and people barely notice it. So
But one of the problems with that is like they're not your customers anymore. They're Amazon customers, right? Let's
right, that's
let's
what you were
cut to the
saying.
chase.
Yeah, and that was my point to
Yeah.
come
So
back to
how do you
was
keep them? How do you keep them to be your customers, but use these platforms and share in the? See, sometimes it doesn't seem to be very fair. You're the one building the brand. You have all the
right.
products. You do all the work, and then they're like, "Well, no, you can't get access to these customers. They're now ours because they ordered on our platform." Blah blah blah.
It's tough. I feel like they're
Yeah.
gonna have to make a change one day
Yeah.
if they want to kind of go up against the Shopify's and the WooCommerce of it all. I mean, WooCommerce is
Right.
the extreme of that. They're so open. They're like everything is open about
Right.
it, but unregulated.
So can I stream and then have them check out on my WooCommerce?
See, I
Is that
don't think Amazon's
possible?
gonna let you do that.
No, Amazon will never.
But
Right.
obviously,
Obviously,
some
they
of these
want.
other platforms, yeah, like Facebook, you can head over and purchase from your store
Okay.
still. Now, do they
Good.
want you to check out on Facebook?
Well,
Yeah, they're
of
like,
course
oh,
they
of
do.
course,
Yeah.
we've got this. It's really easy. It's so easy for us to hook this up.
It's so easy. I understand it, but what are you trading for that? That's what I guess we could have a whole nother episode
Yeah,
on that because I'm very curious about that. I've run into this situation a lot, and the margins become smaller. Even QVC, I remember hearing back years ago. People would go on QVC and sell 100,000 things, but then make no money. Like, how is that
yeah.
possible?
Well,
And it was the fees and the this and the that and the margins, and I'm like, so you sold a lot, but you didn't really make a lot. So
so
interesting.
the I guess that kind of almost that could segue into the social commerce too, because
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the big elephant in the room,
yeah,
right? Isn't it? There's so many different social platforms that are really so social commerce, right? That's the new buzzword. That's what we were saying at the top of the episode here. It's so each one of those have developed their own shopping ability, right? Facebook, a marketplace, right? Instagram, like you just mentioned, has one now. What else we got? Snapchat, right? Buyable pins, TikTok. I mean, we can go on. There's probably even 10, 20 more.
oh,
So
buyable pins on
each of them,
Pinterest. Okay, yeah,
yeah, I only because that's how I know it is buyable pins. It might have
yeah.
changed, but they uh, because Pinterest was one that I thought would really take off because you're looking at the products, and I just was kind of how did they make that connection, and I didn't think they made it as well as say other ones
But
have.
I will say, Pinterest has like the amazing feature of being able to zoom in on like a room,
Right.
and you can like pick it's like image processing, and AI will like grab whatever product that is and then find wherever else it is and tell you where you can buy it. Like
Right. That is.
unbelievable.
Yeah. I don't. I'm not picking on Pinterest. I just remember when everybody was going on social. I'm like, why is Pinterest being left behind? Because I always thought it
It's
was
always been a
another
little
like
bit of the, I don't want to say stepchild
child.
out, but it's kind of different. Like Snapchat is different.
But people are making money on.
Oh,
You know what I
Pinterest,
mean? I
yeah.
guess it just depends, right? Yeah. So I mean, I don't
I
want
didn't
to
mean to cut you
diminish
off.
it
I
in
didn't
any.
mean to I'll get you off track.
No, I don't. You know, believe me, I'm the last person should be talking about social. But I thought social commerce is just fascinating to me because of now they're taking over. So you have websites and you have physical stores, and now you have social commerce, and I think it's like a three-legged stool, right? You almost have to be on all three platforms, really, to some degree. Go into AR commerce. What is AR commerce
Yeah,
for our
so
viewers? What do you?
AR commerce, augmented reality, and it's actually more popular than people sometimes realize, because it sort of like happens, and because it's kind of in your world and in the digital world, it sort of like blends that, and it's the mixed reality. Um, it's delivering some sort of experience that's both virtual and
Mhm.
in real life. Now,
I know it is two things. So I'll just tell you
yeah.
for my IKEA did it, or was known that was their big claim, but that was
Mhm.
years ago, I think, right? And then I've heard Lowe's or Home Depot, one of those two large big box stores, had some, and I've used it in the sense of look at your house if you want to paint your house or change your
Yeah.
house. There's some I've seen those where they'll show you your house will, or your landscape will look different if you use. You have to go out and take a picture of your house or something, and then you
Mhm.
feed it into the system, right? So, from my perspective, I have used it and seen it, but is it becoming a? Tell me a little bit more. Is what is the future of it? Because I really
Yeah,
haven't
I
paid
think
attention at all.
there's the take the picture, right? And that's like a little
Yeah,
more, I think that's probably not as common now.
that's
Now
old.
it's like, okay,
Yeah, it's
you
old.
have your camera on your phone and it's a selfie one.
Oh, right, right,
It's turned around at you, and on Pinterest you can put makeup on and see what the makeup looks like on your face.
right.
You can do IKEA kind of paved the way. It's a big, like a big enterprise use of it was their furniture, and you could kind of place it in your room using your smartphone, so you could see where it would sit. And the whole idea is that like you're seeing the product in the wild, and you can see it with your other appliances, if it's furniture or countertops or
Ooh.
paint colors. You can see your house paint color with your plants. Yeah.
That's what I was right. That's what I was looking at. Yeah, kind of how does my house look? Now, is that the same thing as that Pokemon thing that went
Oh,
crazy
right.
for a
Yeah.
while, where you
Yeah.
go?
Pokemon Go, where you're like sort of,
That was considered AR, right? I
yeah,
thought, yeah. Not as a gaming, but you go collect
huge
things.
social element there.
Huge. Is that still
Yeah,
around?
of course.
That's
And I
so
think that's a huge social element too.
I've heard of it.
It totally was social,
Yeah,
and it was used. So it was using a game.
and it was gaming. We left gaming out of our right. Is there gaming
Oh, of
commerce? I
course.
guess
Yeah.
it
I mean,
must
that
be.
like gaming commerce is huge.
That's where you buy up buying bigger guns or
Oh,
bigger
yeah.
ammo
The
or
world.
stuff like that in the game, in-game
Yeah. Like I'm
purchasing. Is that
so unqualified to speak about that.
yeah, me too, me too.
Yeah. It's not. Yeah. It's not my space.
I'm gonna date myself if I talk
But
about it. Yeah. Um, but there is we left one out. Okay, so
oh,
there's even one
I'm sure
more,
there's
but I don't
20
think
more. Um,
yeah.
what's interesting though about augmented reality is some of the hardware that the phone manufacturers are
See,
putting in the
technically, right.
devices, like the lidar sensor
Uh,
in a lot of the Apple products in like the 2020. Now the lidar sensor, they're really cool. They like sort of like digitally map a space in like a 3D. So
right.
that's like how Nike and some of these other companies, like they're actually like helping people pick out the right shoe size and shoe for them,
Oh, wow.
because it's
Wow.
scanning their
Okay.
feet and sort of giving a.
So is it using like GPS
I'm sure
coordinates to
they could
kind
add
of,
that in.
or
That would even, you know,
yeah. I'm thinking, I guess not for your feet, but for like your house or
absolutely.
the
You could also
neighborhood.
do it for just like where you're pointing the camera to. If
Well, that's the other one I've seen. Like when you're in New York and you want to, like a walking tour or showing. I heard this thing too that they're going to tell you where to walk and how to walk, or
Yeah,
to go to a museum, and it's all though on your phone. And I think that's augmented reality,
sure.
right?
Yeah, and some
It's overlaying it, right? Like
yeah,
the
and some
technology.
museums are doing it too, where you sort of walk around with your device and like it shows you on the wall.
I did that at Woodstock, believe it or not. Now that I'm thinking about it, it wasn't all that great.
What
I
year
mean,
was
I'll
it?
be honest. I was like, it was only a year or two ago, but I think
I thought you
the
meant the
before the
original
pandemic. But the
Woodstock. I
point
said
was,
interesting.
it's the Woodstock Museum, and I'm not picking on them. They was great. I'm just saying, probably though, you think about it, the technology they built for that
Oh,
was
at
4
least yeah,
years old by
probably.
now. So it's just, and it was good. It was just, I was like, plus they didn't have a lot of footage back then to work with, so let's give them a little bit of credit. But anyway, so if I think that's an up and coming explosive area. Are they actually selling a lot on there though? Is the question, I guess. Is there any
Yeah, so
stats
there's
or?
there's some sort of different like the stats are really vague because it's like
Yeah, that's what I was
everyone's
kind
like,
of.
wait,
Nobody wants
what?
to tell
Because
you
I
that
think they
it's
don't
not
know
working.
if
Or,
sometimes
right,
people they're saying that like in B2B experiences, like people are
right.
very educated consumers. So oftentimes they want to avoid talking to the salesperson until they're like fully educated. And AR allows them to experience the product and get one step closer to it and not have to talk to a salesperson. So it,
Gotcha. Self
yeah,
serve.
I think
Yeah.
they're trying to figure out like, okay, what's this sort of like what's sort of the routine or the steps that somebody's going to take now that we have AR. And I think before we close out and move on to VR, which is kind of a a sister or brother of AR, um, let's not forget
Mm-hmm.
augmented audio reality. And Apple's doing
Wow.
that with their spatial audio, which is pretty cool. Yeah.
Wow. Well, so my takeaway, just for my person, is that AR is up and coming, and it's the technology is being added every day to our current phones and devices. Because I was going to say, it's got to be a technical leap for most businesses, but and I would think that certain businesses that are listening to this podcast would have more of a need than others, right? I mean, everybody could use it, but I bet some of them could use it a
Yeah.
lot better than
Yeah.
other
It depends on
ones.
the product.
So I think it's a niche, but it sounds like it's getting bigger, and it sounds like a real future. Yeah. So what's the difference between AR and VR? Right. I know VR real
Yeah.
well.
What is the difference?
That's the total immersing, right? So now VR is total immersement, whereas AR is you're
Hmm. So it's
partial
still in a
immersion.
little bit of
That'd be good.
reality.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Because so I love
Right, right.
VR.
And so
I
like
mean, I've
you
been a big
are, yeah, you're the you walk around with the headset on like a space
yeah.
person.
Yep. I own it.
So
I
what is
love
it
it.
like? I
Yeah.
mean,
Um,
have you been in any of this in the virtual like is it a virtual
oh,
shop?
yeah, yeah, yeah. And I'd say, well, the way I always look at it is, what are the things that people really? This is what they tout, I should say. You know, when you go into a physical store, what are some of the feelings and things that you get? What are the um, and they say it's ease of accessing the products, that you're comfortable, and I think there's some of that in VR, but it's not really that comfortable. I think that's the part that's got to improve a little bit. So I think there's some people who can't handle it because of the spatial the what
Okay,
is
it
it
makes you
called,
like
vertigo.
nauseous.
Yeah, and then also it's clunky. It's
Okay.
extremely clunky right now, and you can only wear them for so long. So if you had to do something really intensive, you can't go shopping at the mall all day, kind of thing. It's gonna wear on you, and it's gonna make you get a headache or something of that nature. But I think the technology they're putting them in the glasses now,
Yeah.
John. I mean, I think that. So in that sense, in 5 years, it's
But
going to
it's an augmented
explode.
reality. Like the Google Glass and like
Well,
the
it's
ones that like Apple apparently is
yeah,
working on.
those are more augmented. But I mean, all they have to do is
Sure, right.
close it
Black them
in, and
out and then
now
you're
it's
sort
doing
of like you
right,
can do both.
right, right. That's what I think they're going to do. They might have. I don't know how they're going to do it, but I think that's what they're trying to get to because it's too clunky. But the whole microprocessor, I don't want to get into technology, but it's either the technology is in the computer and it's feeding the glasses, or in the case of the ones for Oculus, they're in the glass. So with those, they became a little bit more accessible to people. I don't think the quality of the image is nearly as high, and I know it isn't. But I mean, the comfort and the ease of use is there. And then they built an entire social network up there, so they
An
kind of
AR,
have
like
their
a
own. So
VR.
I don't think people realize that. Yeah, yeah. Well, I think Oculus is, in other words, another social media
Right. Owned by
hangout. Does that make
Facebook, the
sense?
metaverse eventually.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I guess now it's metaverse, things of that nature. Yeah, I have one around here. Hang on. I have one of those, and this
Oh
is how
yeah,
big they
it's
are.
huge.
So you've seen them on the TV, right? Versus they make much smaller goggles, but then they don't have the processor and the this is the
So
battery and all
is
that.
anyone like are any
So
big brand like companies using it now? Like can you
yeah,
go buy and like
well, there's three things. Yeah, there's virtual showrooms, which I think is a really good use for it, and you can pick up and pinch and grab things
okay.
and do things, interact with things. So there's a whole bunch of companies that are doing virtual showrooms, and then the second thing is more like the try before you buy kind of concept, which is visually virtualizing a product in your hand or using it. That's the idea of trying to get you to do that. I don't think that part's really worked out as well. Again, just because you can grab things and you can do things, it's still clunky
It's not like
and things
tact
fall
like
out of your
you
hand all
can't
the
feel
time.
it.
Yeah, there's no feel, right? There's no tactile feel. And then there's also some other uses like, I think cost and technology are going to catch up. So I think that a lot of brands would love to use it, but so we had one where we were talking to, um, I don't want to name the company at the moment, but we were talking about how they could bring the experience. It was more or less for even the store managers who couldn't fly during COVID. How could they look at the
Oh, for like
stores
brand
that they
management.
manage and make sure that they're right? How could they see that their marketing was correct? Because the stores were still open, but they couldn't go visit them. Well, that's a great use for it. You can actually sit at home and look at all 500 stores that you have and walk through them and do things like that. But it became a cost issue for them. They were like, we could do this, but, and it makes great sense because you think of all the flights, think of
Yeah.
the money that's spent traveling around. And you add that on one side, and then you go, we could do it with
Yeah.
VR. But we ran into other issues, but it was very close to a real event. I
You could
think
also
we
like
could have
do
done it.
all of your showrooms in like one day. Like, versus you can't travel to 10
Yeah,
cities in one day, but you could take a 20-minute
right.
loop or 30-minute loop through 10 of them.
Some of the best things on VR are
AR
actually.
or VR?
Oh no, I'm sorry. VR. We're like go inside the Sphinx or the
Oh, like
pyramids in
okay.
Giza. Um, travel and things like that. Go under the
Educational.
ocean. They're really. I mean, there's an educational part to it, which is really good. And be out on the space. I've done that one where you're on the space,
Space station.
not the shuttle, space station. Yeah. So education's huge. I think that's probably an area that's going to be explored. Our kids are all going to be using. They could travel the world without leaving their desk chair at school. That kind of thing. So those are they're up and coming. I think some brands are going to embrace it. You have to have a little bit of money though to get into that area,
Yeah.
and you have to have a reason. I mean, it's not for everybody. So I don't think that a lot of our listeners are going to jump on that one, but they should go get themselves some VR goggles. They should dabble
Yeah.
in it, get an idea of what it is, and it is good for
Right.
some brands. So you have to kind of figure it
And
out for yourself. Yeah.
I think AR is like a more practical, significantly
Correct.
more
I would say you're
accessible.
correct.
And
Yeah.
I mean, overall, people have access to it. There's a lower barrier of entry with it because you have a phone. 9 times out of 10, I'm
Much
not,
so.
maybe not 9 times, maybe like
Right.
5 or 8. You have like some of those intense
Yes.
technology, like a LiDAR sensor or something that can do enough of it to get you there to use it.
It's super accessible for anybody, whereas VR is not. However, VR is very social. So I use VR to talk to my buddies that I can't see. They're across the country, and instead of getting on the phone, we go play golf or we do things
Interesting.
together in VR, you know. And it you can have multiple people. We have groups of people just playing a round of golf that I've never met before, but it's hilarious and it's fun. And so I think it's much more social than, say, people think. And I think the network, that's why Facebook's going that direction. And once you get in there and you realize that, then you kind of, most of the games that were single player, and that's my biggest complaint. They need to
Communal.
be more,
Now, before we
you know,
move on
yeah.
to
Um,
the next segment, the I don't want to forget that people are using AR in person too, in store. So
mhm,
I was like, oh, that's,
mhm.
yeah, it
I
makes
have heard
perfect
that.
sense.
Yep.
One of the really good examples, Walmart with hair dye colors in their hair dye section. You can scan the
Right.
box and then see what it looks like on you using your phone. I don't know. I thought that was so cool.
It is cool. And I've seen the makeup
Yeah,
counters and
but you
things
would
that are
think it would
doing a
just be
lot with
online,
that.
but no, it can
Um,
also be like come in store and use it too.
no, I'm really excited for the next 10 years for both AR and VR. I think, and obviously
Yeah,
we're not the only ones who
entire
are, you know.
industry.
So the whole industry. But now how does it go to commerce? This is the thing. I don't think that part's been really figured out as well. Who's making money at it, doing it, and actually getting orders? I think back to live streaming is much more. If you're talking about collecting money and selling
Yeah.
products, you're probably more into live streaming right now.
And so
Yeah, than
we
VR.
talk.
Yeah.
We're going to touch on conversational commerce, but it kind of it blends a, a
This is my favorite one of upcoming. Yeah, this one I thought was fascinating, and we don't
So
even
what
see
is
it
it
happening, but it is
exactly?
happening every day. Well, it's conversational commerce, so it's one to one, much like you were saying before. You were
Or
saying
one to
live
many?
streaming one to one. It can be right or one to many, but it could be. So it could be as simple as a chat bot
Oh,
when
I see. So
you
that's the
land on
one
a
to
certain
one, and
website,
then
or
okay,
that's the one to one. Or as you're on a site, you know, someone comes in and
okay,
helps you shop. That's why I like it, you know. So shopping assistance. It could be a real person or a robot or both. And that's the one I like. I like the both where it might start off as a robot. Think about it when you get on the phone and you know you're hearing the,
yeah, yeah,
the stupid automated phones for the last 10 years. You know, you hit zero, 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 human, 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 you know, and you try to get to a person because you realize the bot's too stupid to help you. It's similar to that, whereas a bot might start off the conversation, John, and then you will be handed over to a human. And I think that, to me, the blend is, I think, what's really gonna, you know, to me, that's what people should strive for. The idea of total bots, I think, you know, this point is probably not possible. But that's where the AI comes in, John. You're more versed in the AI, and I imagine that part's
yeah.
going
And
to
I
catch up
think
quickly.
that see,
Um,
I'm more of like I like the piece of using the bots to kind of filter them down to a person or like take the relief off of support.
right. That's
I
what I
just
think.
think
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
as long as we can keep like the human touch, that's like I think that is so crucial. But
Yeah. Me too.
conversational
Yeah.
commerce too, isn't live streaming a bit of that? With your people are commenting,
I
people are
love
in the
that.
chat
Yep.
saying why it's happening, and or they're a live caller, or it is sort of guiding that person through the process, which is kind of what the conversational commerce is, right?
Yeah, I mean, John, we do it now with recommendation engines and you know things like that, and frequently bought together and things you know where you're using a little bit of AI to recommend products to people. I think it's just going to the next level where they're having a conversation about it. I think is what the right wouldn't that be the definition? And then whether it's a bot doing it or a human or both. Or it could be, we've seen some, you and I both have looked at examples of helping people shop, you know,
Yeah.
because we've been studying that one for a long time. And I'm wondering how much of those are AI driven, how much of them are script driven,
Yeah, some of
rule
it's just
based.
logic, but at the
Um,
end of the day, I think
None of this.
it's see, I think you could bet like for me, I'm like, I'll bend the rules. Like conversational commerce to me could also be could be that. Like guiding them through it. And even though it's
Mm-hmm,
using logic, I think the idea of a conversation is like back and forth. And it's like input, output, input, output, input, output.
if I hit you with five questions, you might be like,
Yeah.
well, what? Click, gone, right? You know, But if I do it in a conversation, what are you looking for? What size are you? You can see it's a conversation. Now I got the 5 points. I have your old data. I could, let the machine put it all together and present you back with what exactly you're looking for in a nanosecond. So that's the difference between
A
conversational, I
lecture,
think, and just
right?
plain old, recommendation. Right, right. Yeah. And you have to have that conversation. It's not that I couldn't ask you 15 questions or fill out a survey. I mean, but that's not, nobody wants that. And it's not really shopping. It's not,
The goal is
it's not human
participation.
enough. So exactly. You're not participating in that. So yeah, I mean, that's why it excites me a lot. And it brings in some of those other systems, and me, I
Yeah.
like to tie systems together, and, so it really excites me. So it can be used though in live streaming. It's the same logic. It could be used in all different, any of the ones we talked about today could use conversational
Yeah, I think
AI.
in
I think so.
in this is a great place to wrap up, because I mean it is about that conversation and that participation.
Yeah.
No matter if you're using AR, VR, social commerce, whatever they may be, is have that participation, have that back and forth, that conversation. It's human. Until next time, we'll be back. Maybe we'll dive deeper into one of these other topics.
Yeah, we could dive so much deeper, John.